It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to The New Next, a podcast that addresses current events and how they will impact the future. I would be interested, I'm not interested personally of doing it, but I think if you go further into his thoughts and stuff, I'm pretty familiar with Wayne Dyer from previous things, a previous life. And this is a talk that you and I have had multiple times, mostly regarding politicians. And we somehow have not been as I don't know what the right word. We've been kinder to Teal Swan than we have to Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
Yeah.
We're kinder to Spencer or Wayne Dyer or followers of Jesus than we have been to Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And there's reasons for that. Obviously, because of what the nature of being president of the United States is. But I'm and what I'm talking about specifically is not their beliefs. It's not the beliefs that we're attacking most of the time. We use the beliefs as a secondary thing, but what we really do to attack them is like, yeah, but if you see what Joe Biden has actually done, then his beliefs are somehow invalid because of these actions he took. And the more extreme version of this is where people are looking at not even what Joe Biden has done, but what his son has done. Well, Hunter Biden has done this, so obviously Joe Biden's theory on blah, blah, blah is wrong. And because Donald Trump has done this, all of his political acumen and stuff is BS.
Like whataboutism almost?
Huh?
Like whataboutism almost?
Yeah. So Martin Heidegger, who is the most weird deconstructionist postmodernity philosopher there is, and it's so thick that it's almost impossible to work through. Like my philosophy professor who's read Heidegger and studied Heidegger is like, yeah, he's just full of crap. Because if you can't understand anything, if you have to have a computer decipher a philosopher, and the computer doesn't even understand. But Heidegger was also a Nazi. So does that change our view of whether or not, and I'm not talking about oh, he was German and therefore he was a Nazi. Like he was a devout Nazi.
Yeah.
And it definitely influences thinking. If we look at people you've mentioned multiple times in the past of their connections to sex trafficking and stuff, does that automatically delegitimize other things they say and do? We've talked about Nancy Pelosi, specifically Nancy Pelosi, using her connections as a speaker, as a legislator, to knowing inside information on the stock market. Does that automatically delegitimize everything she has to say or believe because she's obviously doing something that's unethical? And I say obviously, I'm coming from a certain viewpoint of myself, saying that that's obviously, and that I'm also saying it's unethical. If we found out that Jesus was gay, does that delegitimize what he has to say, as opposed to if he's a straight person? Does Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, does what he wrote mean less because he was trying to be cause all the terror he's caused? I mean, I'm taking these extreme examples, but we do that all the time of But if it works for us, then we say like, yeah, I know that Ted Kaczynski was the Unabomber, but what he had to say was actually pretty important.
Yeah.
So I am convinced, not just from watching the one documentary on Hulu, but I'm convinced that there is forms of torture that definitely happened with Teal Swan. I'm convinced of that. Does that
she did
delegitimize
it?
everything that the people that were part of her organization did it?
Oh.
And that she was very well aware of it. Does that delegitimize everything she has to say or think? No.
Well,
But
maybe a good comparison is, yes, murder is wrong, but if you murder someone when they're trying to murder you while you're sleeping in your bed and attack your family, then that's a totally different story.
But then we generally don't call that murder. We usually call that at best manslaughter.
Well, you're killing someone, so
right,
maybe it's
which is manslaughter.
It's hard to find absolutes.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, I'm saying though that that's the issue that's going on. Like one of the things and my wife asked me before we were like, do you guys have a specific thing you're going to talk about today? I'm like, I'm sure we do. I just don't know what it is yet. And right when she was asking me that, I was reading an article about Lauren Boebert.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Groping and being groped at a play or whatever, a theater production in Colorado, Denver, and how she was kicked out. And it wasn't until they showed video that her team even admitted that they were doing anything. And this is in conjunction with the North Dakota governor who's had an affair with some of the Trump administration. And then, of course, the one person who steps up to defend them first, and it just cracks me up, is Matt Gaetz. Because anything that can get away from the fact of him doing naughty things with minors is going to, even the way I'm framing this.
So he actually
got off a lot.
Well, no, I'm ha ha ha. I just got that. Well, no, I'm just saying. So in his case, like he got totally cleared on it. But well, so the thing that bothers me about the other people that you said is they're out, thumping this certain narrative because it benefits their power. And I thought it was hilarious when I read that article about Boebert, whatever her name is, that her new boyfriend or whatever that she's hanging out with, and she like divorced her husband, he's the owner of a bar, like I think a gay bar that has drag queen nights and stuff. And it's just like, it's like, why are you out trashing drag queens and all these people if you're literally dating a Democrat that you're saying all Democrats are evil, but then you are sleeping with one, doing all this crazy stuff. And then they also own like a bar that I think it's in Aspen. Having drag queen bar in Aspen seems totally normal thing to me, but you're out there basically holding the party line and attacking people in the process. Well, you're literally a part of it. So,
well, and that's the thing, and I'm going to bring this back to Teal Swan. Like, one of the things, because she even admitted this stuff. I mean, this is what is crazy to me. She admitted that she gave free rein to the camera people. She admitted that we did everything we could to basically be friends with the people that made this video and stuff. Like, this isn't new information. She gave them full access to the things that that she later regretted giving full access to. Yes, they spun it however they spun it, and it didn't put her in a good light. Not denying the fact that there's no such thing as a documentary that doesn't have an agenda. I mean, that's part of what a documentary is. And I'm not even talking about like freaking, oh goodness, the stuff you watch in high school and elementary school where the Burns documentaries and stuff where fades out of this picture and there's a cowboy voice talking about a quote that's completely out of context from what's going on here. I mean, it's Ken Burns, that's what I was thinking. Ken Burns documentary. But there are some things, and it had nothing to do about editing. Her making like the statement immediately after about like, this isn't what happened, and you know, it did happen. Now maybe there's more context we don't have, but we can only play that game for so long too, of how much context are you allowed to have before you're allowed to make a decision on something. And I've watched enough of her stuff to decide that I think a lot of what was said in that documentary is accurate. No one was ever saying that she never gave any good advice at all. Like that's not our advice that's helpful. That was never the statement being made. Yeah. In fact, I think the documentary went out of its way stating that she did help a lot of people. But but the documentary's goal was about the inner circle. It wasn't about the people on the outside. And that's the part that's contentious. Like, well, did he leave on his own accord? The fight that he allegedly had with her on the day that he left, her manager guy. Well, that didn't actually happen on the day of. Okay. Cool. He hasn't said anything one way or the other. Yeah. So he could clear it up really quickly. Well, but I have a feeling he has an NDA that the documentary crew did not. If you would like to learn more about the New Next podcast, find us at thenewnextpodcast.com, where you can suggest a topic you would like for us to cover. If you enjoyed what you heard, share the podcast, tell a friend about it, or rate us with 5 stars.